Ginsburg's legacy more in a special coming out next week. So rather than talk about the woman herself, the fight to replace her has been an ugly one. What's the latest?
Well, this is really a fight that was fought hard for a few minutes, and then somebody drew their gun and shot all the other people. It's kind of high noon movie. But the bad guy won this time, and that is the Republicans. Two of them said they would not vote for an incumbent before the election, which meant the Republicans, if you had four, that would be Romney plus one, because the other two were the senator from Maine and the senator from Alaska, Murkowski from Alaska, uh, came out second. She's not in any kind of election, but she recognizes the fact that they said they would not do this in the last term of any president. So now they've done it. And when Romney came out, they didn't have a third. And the only way to get a fourth was to win the election in Arizona. So that won't work anymore. And the nuclear option is the only one remaining. That is to elect enough Democrats in the Senate that when the next president comes in, and hopefully it's a Democrat, that Democrat would add two more members to the court.
So is there anything Democrats can do, to push the confirmation past the November election if Republicans are determined to go ahead? Are there any other dirty tricks?
Well, there are a couple. But the problem is, at this point, you don't want to be doing dirty tricks because that energizes the other side. Your side is already energized. This is a fiat accompli. The best thing to do is to delay it for a very long time, particularly if you win, to have a lot of arguments about how ridiculous this is that you have a president putting someone on the Supreme Court. He's no longer president. So the hypocrisy, the idiocy of it allows you then to pack the court. So that's the strategy at this point.
What do we know about Trump's potential nominees?
Well, he's got a couple of nominees. One, a woman from Florida, a Cuban of Cuban origin, and she has been to the right, kind of not as far right as Trump, but well to the right. The other one, a young woman from the University of Notre Dame, where she was on the faculty, who has 7 children. I believe she's only 42 years old. So she's like a rabbit. She's had a lot of kids, has been obviously anti-abortion, and has a record of being against almost everything Ginsburg was for.
So what are the implications for the election on this one? I mean, especially at this point, we don't know for absolute certain Trump will get his nominee. I mean, having it open would drive people to the polls. Possibly more Republicans would be going to the polls if they knew that seat was in the up for grabs. Letting Trump have his way, will that keep Republicans away? Will it anger more Democrats into taking action? I mean, what's your take?
Well, I think that the Republicans were already going, so you can't get 102%. The question is, how do you get 100% of Democrats? Democrats outnumber Republicans nationwide. So this would mean him having a very big electoral and popular victory. So the only side that really needs to be energized are the Democrats. There are some Republicans who don't like doing this, but that's kind of, I'll put my finger on my nose and do it anyway, because I really want that kind of justice on the court.
COVID-19, the United States is now at over 200,000 deaths.
What a sad,
Yeah.
sad, sad statement that is.
Well, it's a statistic at this point in time, isn't it? Really, I mean, we still don't see a real national strategy or national recovery plan on this one. we've still got cases running rampant in, I believe, every single state, and yet Americans just seem to be over it. These numbers don't mean anything anymore.
Yeah, I think the American public has said we've done all we can. And by politicizing it, if you wear a mask in some communities, people are jeering you and the like. In other communities, if you don't wear a mask, you get the same kind of thing. So rather than having a health response, the United States, and Trump has done this with everything, particularly if it's out of control, he's politicized it. So the real issue doesn't matter anymore. It's gaslighting. Where those Jews go? Oh, they took the train. Maybe they're on holiday. Well, what about these pictures of them in cages or in gas chambers? Oh, they must have been taken a long time ago. Wasn't us. So you're getting people into corners. What I don't understand, with 200,000 people dead, almost everybody in America knows somebody or knows of somebody who died from this disease, including myself. How can you allow this to continue? Because the knock on the door next time might be you.
Some news Trump actually cares about. Manhattan DA Cyrus Vance has said for the first time this week, citing mountains of allegations that Trump could be investigated for tax fraud. In his filing, said they could be looking at a range of charges. What's going on, Ed?
Well, we've known about this for some time, and we know that Cyrus Vance has had this information. There have been numerous attempts to keep it squelched, but now it looks like that's coming to an end. It won't come to an end entirely before the election, but it'll come to an end sometime thereafter. Now, this is something Trump cannot control legally. He's hoping to get in and then he becomes whatever. President might be one name, El Duce might be another, El Presidente might be another, that he would take on the mantle of and try to quash the case. But if this moves in a state court and he's convicted of any more than 2 or 3 of these big felonies, and he got 10 years for each, if the next time he ran for president, it would be from the grave.
New York, not popular with the Trump administration. Attorney General William Barr has threatened to withdraw federal funding from New York, Seattle, and Portland for permitting anarchy. That is their response to recent protests against police brutality, systemic racism, and the like. No idea if he actually has any legal authority to follow through on those threats. But it sounds like a shakedown from a mob lawyer to me, Ed.
You said it right. And this is an election year. Barr knows he's in trouble too, because he's being investigated right now internally. And he might be subject to impeachment and further sanctions. I doubt if he could practice law anywhere after this. So he's going for broke. And he knows this plays well with Trump's base. He knows he can't do anything, but the noise is good noise. As Congressman Lewis said, if you're getting in trouble, make it good trouble. He's getting into good trouble.
And in some news related to these protests, one of the 3 officers who fired weapons during the killing of Breonna Taylor has been indicted. Now, this would seem like good news for those pushing for some responsibility to be taken. However, the 3 counts of wanton endangerment do not apply to the killing of Ms. Taylor herself, but rather that Brett Hankinson showed an extreme indifference to the value of human life by firing bullets that traveled through Miss Taylor's apartment and into that of her neighbors. The 2 other officers, no charges have been laid. Not a lot of satisfaction from this one, Ed.
Yes, this is going to put Trump in a very difficult position. This morning, he said, well, I really love the Black community, and I'm going to have to look at this to see what can be done. He has read the polls. If Blacks come out in the numbers they did in the Obama era, he's cooked. But he's cooked with his own constituency if he says, oh, these policemen were operating the way they should and being tough. What I anticipate, he's going to ask for a federal investigation to see if her civil rights were violated. Well, that investigation would go on for a year or 2 years. So he thinks that can appease the Black community and may hold the line with those Blacks who are Trumpers. I don't know, but it'll certainly be exposed very, very quickly. And if Barr doesn't move quickly on this, and he doesn't have a lot of time, it'll be seen for what it is. But he has to do something. It may be just rhetoric.
Iran, the United States is insisting that snapback sanctions against Iran are in place, even though most of the rest of the world is saying, no, they're not, and that's actually illegal. What's going on?
Well, this is an interesting ploy on the part of the United States. It's acting like it is the only signatory to this treaty. And when the United States withdrew from it, the United States is acting like that covered everyone else. So this is so bizarre, you'd say, why do that? Trump wants to have a war. If all else fails, a war with Iran would be nice. By doing the snapback, that means all the old embargoes and the like would be put back in place, meaning an Iranian ship on the high seas could be seized or fired upon by the American Navy, which would escalate into some kind of potential war. Trump doesn't want a big war. He wants a little war, kind of like Grenada with Reagan, something we can win. But this is very dangerous business, because I would anticipate the French and British would start escorting the Iranian ships. And now we got a big problem. Furthermore, the American Navy might not honor Trump's notion of firing on a foreign vessel without really much better cause than violating a trade embargo.
We'll have to, in October, keep our eyes open for any tails looking to wag some dogs. Speaking of the British across the pond, the UK has been struggling with COVID-19 as well. A lot of that gets drowned out, drowned out by just how utterly terrible the US has been failing. There's also been a new reasonable worst case scenario for Brexit laid out this week in the UK Parliament for when the UK leaves at the end of this year. Things over there looking pretty disastrous, and Boris, as far as I can tell, he's just being Boris. He's Boris as usual. Ed, what's happening?
Well, Boris is failing. He, like Trump, has not thought strategically about how to deal with this disease, nor has he used his health officials very intelligently. And consequently, having a national strategy there means to be dividing the country into subparts, Scotland, Wales, etc., and then running different strategies as we do here in Australia, where Victoria has a very different strategy than New South Wales or Queensland. As it is, every town seems to have its own strategy. And every region has another strategy coming from another source. The information's confusing. The only thing they can do now is have a national lockdown. This is terrible news. Going from a lockdown to opening up and then locking down again, as Florida, Texas, and California tell you, loses votes and loses capacity to govern. So they don't have a clue as to where they're going to go or how they're going to do it. And Boris is not looking good right now.
And back in the election race, Ed, we haven't been talking much about endorsements, but this week Joe Biden has been endorsed by Cindy McCain, the wife of former political rival John McCain, also endorsed by a group of former Environmental Protection Agency heads who have criticized the EPA's direction under Trump. What's happening in the race? What's the latest?
Well, anybody who's a Republican, a Lincoln Republican, people who were part of the Republican Party through the Bushes, feels a responsibility to hold that party together in its mandate. And the only way to do that is to get rid of Bush. They are not necessarily in love with Biden. They just want to vote him out. And clearly, when he's out, they'll reassert their power, their traditional power within the existing Republican Party. But my feeling about this is that party may be gone, and the party that Trump built will be inherited by somebody else, maybe another Trump. We could see the end of the Republican Party if they continue on this course.
Now, over the next couple of weeks, people need to be watching out. We're going to be releasing some special episodes in conjunction with the Democrats Abroad, the official overseas arm of the Democratic Party. Need to keep their eyes open for that. But anything else people should be
No, I
watching
think
for?
this is a day of mourning for
Mm.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Let's all pray for her and hope she's praying for us.
Excellent, Ed. Well, mate, we will be, as I say, a couple of specials over the next couple of weeks, and we will be talking again next week. We'll catch you then.
Thank you, mate.